As an academy owner, you work hard to build trust with your students, their parents, and your community. But trust isn't something you claim, it's something you prove and earn. That's where Academy Safe comes in. We help academies like yours stand out with verified safety standards. Background checks for all staff, U.S. Center for Safe Sports certification, concussion training, defibrillators on site, CPR, first aid and AED certification, security cameras, rank and lineage checks, and verification of business insurance. Join the trusted martial arts registry that's redefining safety throughout North America. Lead by example. Show parents you're accredited with Academy Safe.
Hello, and welcome to My Empty Hands, a podcast about the martial arts, typically focused on Kempo, but we give love to all the martial arts around here. I am Reggie Darden, and excited to be speaking with Mr. Hawkins here, Mr. James Hawkins, and we're going to learn about his journey in Kempo and in the martial arts, and kind of where it all started, and whatever other rat holes that we get onto, we'll do that as well. I usually start things off by just giving a little bit of my background. I currently train in multiple martial arts at this point, American Kempo, Capoeira, Hapkido, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and I also have some experience in Taekwondo and boxing. So I stay busy with the job and the podcast and every other little thing that catches my eye. I stay busy. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So we're going to turn things over to our guest here. So tell us, where did Kempo find you? Where did the martial arts find you? Where did it all start? And we'll just kind of take it from there.
All right, so I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and Kempo found me. It's funny that you put it that way because Kempo really did find me. I did martial arts since I was a kid, but when I was a teenager, I would go outside in front of the apartment that I lived in, and I would just kind of do my thing in the front yard of the apartment complex. And across the courtyard from where I lived, there was a guy that would come out on his balcony every so often and just kind of like watch what I was up to. He never said anything. And then one day he went back into his apartment. He came across the street and he's like, "Hey, kid, what are you doing?" And I told him, I said, "I've got a background, a bit of Kung Fu, a bit of Taekwondo, and I just like to come outside and practice." And he asked if I'd ever heard of Kempo. And I told him, I had from of course, back then everyone heard about it from the Just Bieber's movie, The Perfect Weapon. So I was like, yeah, I saw The Perfect Weapon. I thought that was cool, but I didn't know anything else about Kempo beyond that movie. So he kind of showed me a couple things, and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool stuff." And he said, "Yeah, I think you were filling our school. You gotta come see my instructor." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Give me the address, and I'll go by." And he said, "No, we can just take a ride and go there now. It's not that far from here." So I was like, "Okay." So jumped to a stranger's car. And then we we drive down the road to at the time the school was called Frederick's Kempo Karate. Jim Frederick and I went in there and watched the class and sat there. And then Mr. Frederick came over and talked to me. Turns out the guy that had run into me, a guy named Jimmy Pasoris, he was one of Mr. Frederick's longtime black belts. So he brought me in there. I talked to Mr. Jim Frederick, talked to a couple of his other black belts that were there, got introduced to some of the students that were there. Including one of them who would become a lifelong friend of mine. I'm sure we'll talk about him a bit later on. And then I, went back home to my dad and I said, "Hey, this is this thing I really want to do." And, my dad never really supported my martial arts training up to that point. So I had to sell it to him. So I was like, "Hey, look, I'm in school now. Getting ready to, I was at what year was that? This is my freshman year of college. And I'm like, "Look, I'm not doing anything else other than going to school. My grades are great. I'm on a full scholarship. I've done everything you ever asked me to do. Haven't really asked you for anything. I really want you to pay my tuition for this." And, after selling it to him for, what felt like an eternity, my dad finally agreed to say, "Okay, I'll pay for these lessons for you to go do this thing with the agreement that it cannot interfere with your school. So if any of my grades dropped in the slightest, he was going to, I'm cutting the funding. I'm pulling you out of this thing." And thankfully it never got to that point. So. There we go.
Very nice. So yeah, I can definitely relate. In my history, I've always been interested in the martial arts, and I begged my father for let's see, I guess it took 14 years, 15 years to sell him on the idea of allowing me to start training. And yeah, I didn't get to that until finally got the green light. Although I kind of pre-gamed quite a bit before that with a friend of mine who started. We both saw the perfect weapon and was like, oh yeah, we got to do that. So started with that. In your story though, I want to rewind it back a little bit. So before getting into Kempo, you did have some other martial arts training. How did that get started?
So the way that got started was we had a gentleman in the neighborhood I grew up in. It's funny, you grow up in Baltimore. There's a lot of little places that people teach martial arts here and there. There's some big schools that everyone knows about, and then there are other smaller schools that no one knows about. They're just neighborhood schools. So there was a gentleman named Mr. Evans who ran a school in the neighborhood, and like I said, my family wasn't terribly supportive, so I had to find creative ways to get away for a bit and go take some lessons here and there. Um, the classic way for me to get out of it was to tell my grandmother I was going to go visit my aunt around the corner. So my aunt Nita lived. I lived in one block with my grandmother, and my aunt Nita lived one street over on another block. So I say I'm going to go see Aunt Nita. This is back in before the days of cell phones tracking us and GPS and everything else. So I say I'm going to go see Aunt Nita. It was like, okay, if I said I was going to go see Aunt Nita, no one called Aunt Nita to see if I got there. So I was able to sneak away every so often for an hour here, an hour there to go take some lessons. And then eventually I would have to go to Aunt Nita's just so I can close that loop and say, yeah, I was there. Then there were times where I would go to school and then come home from school and, the bus took a little long for me to get home. The buses were late. So that's why I'm home 2 hours late. No, I wasn't. The bus was fine. I was taking lessons. But this guy was very generous with his time and taught a lot of neighborhood kids, free of charge. So that's how I got started in martial arts. And then unfortunately he passed away in my teen years. And then I just kind of didn't have anything else to go to and do. And then, as luck would have it, within a couple of months, that's when Draper Soares came across the street and was like, hey, why don't you go do this thing? And I was like, oh, sounds good. Let me see if I can sell my dad on this idea. But yeah, I stuck with that first school for, when I lived in the city. And then eventually I moved into Towson, which is a county north of Baltimore City. But I still would frequently go we would call it going into town is what my dad would say, are you going into town? But I would always, I lived in Towson, but I didn't spend any time there. When I wake up, I would go catch the bus or get a ride with a friend and I'm going to Baltimore City where I'm from. I never really felt at home there. So I kept that connection, but that was the beginning. And that kind of helped me with my Kempo in the beginning because I was already used to that level of coordination and that level of discipline. So it wasn't like, you see people coming to a martial arts school and the biggest hurdle for some people coming in is just the basic coordination. Can you stand on one leg long enough to do a kick? Can you keep track of which way is left and which way is right? Can you move your arms a certain way? And I was pretty much well acclimated to that. So I kind of progressed very rapidly through Kempo initially, and that became a point of controversy if you want to go down that you want to go down that line of this interview or not.
Yeah, well, I like I like the covert ninja training that you started out with. Boys and girls, definitely it's important to tell the truth, but a little bending of the truth is okay is okay
It
here
was
and there.
blending of the truth. I made it to my aunt's house. I just didn't go right there. There
Exactly,
was a bit of a
exactly.
delay getting home from school. Just, it wasn't the school bus. It was the bus after that.
Exactly. Well, good thing there's not a statute of limitations regarding the prosecution of little story bending, but um, so you kind of touched on this, but I want to. I guess, get a little clarity on this. So, anyone that I speak to that has trained in multiple arts before they got into Kempo, was there a bit of a difficulty in switching from the systems and going into kind of a different way of doing things, or were you able to kind of pick it up fairly easy?
So I would say I was able to pick it up fairly easy. The biggest challenge I had initially was getting out of the habit of dropping into a taekwondo back stance instead of the neutral bow. You know, taking that rear foot and pointing at 45 instead of pointing at a 90. I spent many hours after my first class just in the corner, just drilling that motion to get that habit out and get the neutral bow in. That was like the biggest thing. Outside of that, at the time, I had a good friend in college. Everyone always chuckles at the name, but yes, this is really his name. Jesse Jackson, this is his actual name. And, you know, we met each other in college shortly before I started Kempo, and we were in the same dorm. We were just talking about martial arts. And he comes from a wrestling background, and his father was a boxer. His older brother's a boxer, so he was a boxer naturally too. He had done some kung fu training as well. So, you know, once I said taekwondo, he had a low opinion of it. So, you know, we're just chatting about martial arts, and it turned into, you know, we should spar sometime. Yeah, we should. You know, well, why don't you want to spar right now? Like, yeah, I'm game. Let's go right now. I'm going to my dorm to change my clothes. All right, I'm going to my dorm to change my clothes. And when we did that the first day we met, that's how we met, was talking martial arts, then arguing martial arts, then challenging each other to a sparring match. We get dressed. We go into the back of the dorm, which is like it's like this little small clearing in the woods behind the dorm building we lived in. And we beat the hell out of each other for a couple hours. And then when we were done, we were like, man, that was the best thing ever. You want to do it again tomorrow? And we are lifelong friends to this day, but we started off just constantly beating each other up behind the dorm. And then it became something that the people at our college, Morgan State, knew us for. Like, oh yeah, that's those guys that are always doing the martial arts stuff, beat each other behind the dorm. But he was better with his hands than I was. He was far better with his hands than I was. So once I started doing Kempo, I didn't tell him I was taking something else, but he started to pick up on it. He was like, wait a minute. He was like, he stopped me one day. He was like, what are you up to? I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, the hand stuff you're doing, it's very different now. He's like, I'm not stupid. He's like, you're doing something on the side, you know? So, but yeah, that was the hardest thing, was getting more used to using my hands and staying at more of a mid to close range as opposed to Taekwondo, which is, you know, the hand is the last option. It's, you know, stay at long range, and that getting that back stance out of my system. So I could stop having people, you know, the instructor stop me in my form and go back foot every time, back foot, back foot, back foot. But it didn't take as long as what I would make it sound like. And we can get into that, where I said my progression through Kempo caused a lot of controversy from people who aren't from the area and didn't train at the same school I did, to see the work that I was putting in.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can relate to a number of things there that you mentioned. My transition from Kempo so I started with Kempo, and then I moved into Capoeira. And my transition from Kempo to Capoeira, I kept ending up in my left fighting stance, and it's like, no, we don't. That's not what we do in Capoeira. And so yeah, it took a while to get that out of my system. Or I guess unlearn it, relearn it. I guess unlearn would probably be the way to describe that. The other thing that kind of comes to mind and is interesting, in that your friend had I guess just for lack of a better term, a good hand skills for a Taekwondo person, and I mean,
Well,
I
he
guess it
wasn't.
depends on what
I
kind
was
of
I was a
Taekwondo.
Taekwondo person. He wasn't. That was the thing.
Okay.
He was a
All
boxer.
right. Oh, okay.
So we're starting off, and I'm just kicking his head off all day long. And then when we get close, he's boxing me up, and I got to create distance again. As the months go on through Kempo, I stopped creating distance, and we start fighting at hand range more often. And that's when he's like, wait a minute, there's something going on beyond the usual exchange of information. Because when I hit him with something, he would say, "How did you do that?" He'd do something to me. I was like, "How did you do that?" But he's like, "Wait a minute, you're doing stuff that I didn't show you. Like, where?" It's almost like, "Hey, man, you're not holding up the end of the agreement here. What else are you doing? Because you're not telling me anything."
Okay, gotcha. I get it mixed up. I was thinking about The Perfect Weapon, and in my
That's
early
that
years.
classic scene.
Well, yeah, my early years in Kempo, I guess misguidedly thought that there was some sort of rivalry between Kempo and Taekwondo,
Yeah,
and
yeah. I can see how you make that connection for that movie. Yeah.
so well, I mean, it got fed a little bit at my Kempo school. Every now and then we'd have, well, one thing is so my first teacher, he was, even though he was strictly just doing Kempo, he taught in I guess he shared a space with a Taekwondo
Mm.
teacher. And so I guess a lot of that kind of osmosis happened there. And so as Kempo schools go, we were much better kickers than I guess your typical Kempo school was. So we had that, and then from time to time we would have Taekwondo people come into our school and come to our sparring classes and whatnot, and that was kind of all our thing. Is like, oh, like we're gonna show these Taekwondo guys, what's up, and so yeah, there was quite a few of those battles back in the day. Not exactly the blood and guts era of karate going on, but we were definitely getting very close to that and shooting for that a little bit.
Well, it's
So
funny. We had a number of Taekwondo black belts in our Kempo school who either were black belts in Kempo at the time I got there, or ultimately earned their black belts in Kempo at the time I was there. So there was, I'm just going to rattle off some names here. It was Raphael White and Jeff Striegel. These were guys that had their Taekwondo black belts already before when they got there. I was a Taekwondo black belt by the time I got there. Frank Raspa, Taekwondo black belt, Tony Benny. There was another guy named Tony, the guy named Dwayne. It was like it was weird how many Taekwondo black belts we had in the room who were like, okay, it's like everyone had the same connection at some point independently of each other. Hey, I got this foot thing down. I got to get these hands to go with these feet now. So it wasn't as much of a Taekwondo rivalry in our school, just because, when the time came to spar, the guys who had the dual experience were the ones that were kind of cleaning most of the clocks in the school. So.
exactly, like it. Nice. So I will let you decide how deep that we want to get into this, but I mean, we've got to. I try and stay away from controversy, but well, let's go ahead and touch on this controversy regarding your I guess progress through the ranks. And yeah, I mean, we don't want to get too much into the rat hole, but of course there's
That's fine.
always the
It's water under a one bridge at this point. This is circa 2006, so 20 years ago. We used to have these two internet forums that a lot of Kempo discussion took place on. There was Kempo Talk and Kempo Net. And I just started to spend some time on there discussing Kempo. Initially, it was just because of my love of the art. I just wanted to talk about it with more people. I couldn't get enough of it. I was always watching videos, reading the books, anything I could get my hands on, anyone I could talk to. I was like Kempo evangelist. But there's a lot of there was like a social hierarchy already in place. So there was the senior guys, so to speak, that everyone listened to, and then no one kind of listened to anybody else. So I realized early on that having conversations with people and saying things that they agree with, no one engages you in conversation. No one talks to you. If you just say something they agree with, they read it from wherever they are and go, oh, that's nice, and they move on. But if you say something that they don't agree with, or even worse, you say something that they do agree with, but in a way that they don't like that you said it, now people engage with you because they have to try and either prove you wrong or put you in your place and say you're not being as respectful as we want you to be in this space. So I was doing a lot of that at the time. I was doing a lot of things that really try and rub people the wrong way just to get them to talk. So I would say things like, you guys are all doing the same thing. None of you guys are really thinking about your Kempo. You guys aren't thinking outside the box. I would sign off on all my forum posts. I'm from outside the box, Maryland. Like I was really leaning into that character to the point where some guys thought like that this guy really thinks this stuff. I was fortunate enough to meet some of them later in life, years later, like Mr. Angelo Collado over in California. I was able to meet them and kind of like smooth things over. Like, no, it was just an act just to get people to engage with me in conversation. Because otherwise, you've got this Kempo kid in Baltimore. You're not going to talk to me. You don't know who I am. But at the time, people go, well, how long have you been training? I started Kempo in 98. By 2000, I'm a black belt. I'm like, how'd you get a black belt that quickly? And it wasn't just the black belt, it was the other belts. So the school I initially started in, some schools will have you have a competency requirement, and then you also have a time and grade requirement. My school did not have a time and grade requirement. Mr. Jim did not care about your time and grade in the slightest. Could you perform the material up to the standard that he set? Could you talk about it the way you're supposed to? And since everyone in the school taught, can you convey that information to someone else? That was something that was kind of, I realized later on that was a bit controversial. Like some people go to a martial arts school and the structure there is the instructors who work there teach and no one else does. Mr. Jim's school was, once you learned up to, let's say orange belt, if a yellow belt comes in the room, you might be, or a white belt comes in the room, you might be an orange belt that goes, okay, you got them today. You work your material with them, but you got to teach it to them. So everyone in the room got experience of doing the material and learning from someone and teaching someone else. But I flew through the belt ranks very quickly in the first couple of months. So I started Kempo on August 20th of 98. I think August 22nd, I got my yellow belt, which already threw up a red flag. Like, I just got to get a yellow belt in 2 days. September 9 was orange belt. September 22nd or somewhere around there was purple belt. So that's a month and 3 belts down. So from the outside in, if you don't know what's going on, it's, this guy goes to a belt mill. He can't possibly know what he's doing. He can't possibly be doing the material. Someone's taking advantage of him. Like I explained to everyone, the thing was that the school was open for 6 hours a day, and there was no, at that time, there was no beginner class, intermediate class, advanced class. You come in during your time. It was you come in at any time of the day between 3 and 9, and you stay as long as you want. You train as long as you want. So those years I was there, Monday through Friday from 3 to 9, you didn't come in that school and not see me there training. Saturdays from 12 to 4, you did not come in that school and not see me there training. I was the only things I had going was Kempo karate and my schoolwork. I didn't do anything else at the time. So I was just fully immersed in it all the time. Every hour the school was open, I'm there. I'm in class and the teacher's talking about biology and I'm like, yeah, I've covered this unit already. Oh man, what's this form we were working on last night? Oh, what's this move here? Okay, what's this principle I'm working on? I'm sitting there with my physics textbook in my hand, up like this, like I'm following along. But I got, infinite insights inside the book that I'm actually reading like, yeah, it's great. Yeah, circles and stuff. Yeah. So there was a lot of that going on early on. But again, you tell people about that after the fact that aren't there. They're like, oh, how could you possibly do this? And like I would tell them at the time, some of them more rudely than others, I would say, well, how many hours did you spend per week when you train? You go to class 3 times a week. You go to class for an hour each time, maybe 2. Okay, so you did 6 hours this week. I did 6 hours Monday. Then I did 6 hours Tuesday. And I did 6 hours Wednesday, 6 hours Thursday, 6 hours Friday, 4 hours Saturday. So by the time my first month is up doing this, the amount of hours I'm spending in the class are far pacing the amount of hours you're putting into this in the class, let alone the time I'm spending outside of the class. Because after class on Saturdays, as my brothers would tell you, hey man, you want to go hang out? And nope. Got to read these manuals. Got to get this in my head. Got to go practice this form again. Got to practice this technique again. Got to take it apart, put it back together. This is A, B, and C. Okay, I got to figure out all the different ways I can put this together. I was constantly in it. So yeah, that caused a bit of a controversy. My second degree black belt was also a point of controversy way back then. I had a falling out with Mr. Frederick. We can or cannot get into that. I know you said you avoid controversy, and he's no longer here to defend himself. So that's another point to this. But we had a falling out and I left his school. And a friend of mine named Dave Walters was starting another Kempo school in the Catonsville, Maryland area. So we were doing Walters Kempo Karate. We had left Mr. Fredericks and his school, which at the time was Jeff Speakman's old organization before. I shouldn't say old, maybe it's still the same organization. I know he does Kempo 5.0 now. He's been doing that for like 20 years. But prior to that, it was AKKS, American Kempo Karate Systems. So we left American Kempo Karate Systems and we joined American Kempo Karate International. So that was Paul Mills's group, and it was at that time Mr. Mills was still working through the process of recodifying the system to what he ultimately wanted to be. So I believe at that time he was going belt by belt through the system to reorganize it and repackage it. So at that time it was from yellow through blue was the new material. It was yellow through blue was new material along with a few techniques that weren't really tampered with too much, we'll say, and also a knife curriculum. So we went ahead and did all that, and we were getting up to speed on that. And then from green on down, at that time, it was still just, we'll say, standard Mr. Parker's Kempo. Of course, nowadays they would tell you it's all Parker's Kempo. It's just their way of teaching it. So we started doing that, and they had their black belts where you would go to Vegas. I think was it Vegas? Might not be Vegas. I might be thinking of a different organization. But anyway, they had these international camps you would have to go to if you want to test for your black belts. I had no intention of testing for a black belt at all. I was just there I got my first degree black belt. As far as I was concerned, I was done. I didn't need any more tips. I just want to practice the things I got now. That's all I want to do is practice the things I got. I've always kind of been that way. I get a black belt, cool. Now just let me just play with, I got the toys, let me play the toys. But we go to Mr. Bruce Smith's school, who we were training under, and he had 3 other guys he was doing kind of a pre-test for their black belts before he takes them to the international camp. So since they had odd numbers, Bruce says, James, get out there and go, give them a body so you can have 4 people on the floor to do the test. So I volunteer, okay, sure. Yes, sir. I do whatever you tell me. So I go out there, I do the test. I start off just throwing the attacks so they can do the techniques on me, and then I kind of fall off. And he's like, no. You're out there. Just, you do it back and forth. He's like, telling me, like, no, do it like you're really out there. So we go through it, and I do the whole test with these guys. I do everything they're doing. And then when the test is over, I go to sit back in the crowd, and Bruce says, no, you stay out there. Didn't think anything of it at the time, so I sat down. He says, all right, kneel down with the rest of them. So these guys are kneeling down, putting their head on the floor, etc. I pick my head up, and now I've got a second-degree black belt in front of me. And I'm kind of looking at him, looking at Dave Walters, and looking at the other people, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. And he's like, you did the test with them. I think that you did this as well as they did. So it doesn't look right for me to promote them and not promote you because you just did what they did as well as they did. And they were preparing for it and you weren't. Like I wasn't preparing for this. I just came in. So he promoted me to secondary black belt. Long story short, that caused some issues with him later on that I didn't realize. The politics of it was he was not supposed to promote me to black belt. So it became you're not a AKKI black belt. You're a Bruce Smith black belt. I don't care about organizations anyway. I never did. So I'm a Bruce Smith black belt. Awesome. That's the guy I know. That's the guy that spent all this time working with me. So I'm a Bruce Smith black belt. Okay. The other thing was, you haven't even been a first degree black belt for a year yet. It was like 10 months after I got my first degree black belt. I got my first degree black belt June of 2000. This is April of 2001. I'm a second degree black belt now. So there's a lot of people trying to talk me out of the belt. And I'm like, I am a guy that's way senior to me has put this around my waist. And now there are random people who I don't know who are calling me on the phone from all over the country to tell me how horrible of a thing he did, how he shouldn't have done what he did. And some people went as far as trying to tell me, he took advantage of you and took your money. And that's where I kind of had to draw the line in the concrete, not even in the sand. Now I got to stop all of you because he never took a penny from me. He never charged me for a lesson. He didn't charge me for a test. There was never an exchange of anything beyond information. The man was extremely generous to me, never did anything wrong. So anyone apologizing on his behalf immediately had me put a wall up whoa, wait a minute, you're apologizing for things that never happened. So after that point, the next times I ever got promoted, I never talked about it. I didn't say who I was training with. I didn't say who promoted me. I've never explained who promoted me at that point because it became such an issue, not just for me, but for the people who were training me. I said, these are people who are spending their time to impart knowledge to me. And now, what do the kids say these days? They're catching strays. They're catching strays for it. So now I don't even talk about it. They're like, who gives you a 4th degree black belt? Nobody. I just decided to strap it on myself. Can I move or can I not? Can I teach it or can I not? Am I good enough to do this or am I not? If I am good enough and you think I'm good enough, then that's all there is. If you think I'm not good enough, then let's stop talking about it and let's Let's do a proper exchange and we'll see if I can convince you the old fashioned way. But beyond that, the whole what's your lineage and who you train with, and I just pulled myself completely out of that conversation. Who trained you? Nobody. Who promoted you? Nobody. Um, the funny thing is that Mr. Jim, before he passed, he knew who promoted me, but he, because I was promoted to third and fourth outside of his school, but Mr. Jim had a real issue with his black belt leaving to go get promoted somewhere else. So maybe it was just me, because I don't know if anybody else went through that. When I came back to help out at his school again, I ran into two surprise retests for my third degree and my fourth degree. So I have a third degree certificate from him. And then fourth degree tried to give me another one. I said, I don't even want any more certificates in the house. It's just, don't keep it because I'm just going to throw it away. They don't carry any weight. I don't like, if you could see behind me, everything behind me is video game related. I don't have any of my certificates in frames and on walls. They're sitting in a cedar box in the other room in my basement somewhere. Like it just, I want the knowledge, the skill, and the experience and the camaraderie of working with people. So yeah, that was a controversy, was how fast I was moving through the system and how fast I was getting promoted, but it was never something I was asking for. So there we go. Long-winded story.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. No, I like that. I find it very interesting, and I'm going to have to. I'm thinking I may need to implement a new item on my show, and I'm going to have to get the props for it. But I think I'm going to need to implement, put on my rant key, and go on a rant for things like this. It it really, I'm really shocked and disappointed at adults. I never would have, when I started Kempo, I never would have imagined being witness to so much silliness for red stripes on a belt or a certificate. I mean, or, just like you said, oh, well, you've gotten this belt in this amount of time or that amount of time. It's like, if you can perform at the standards that are set by your teacher, if he wants to promote you every day, if that's his standard, then so be it. Like, who cares if it's, at least from my point of view, who cares if you get your, if you can do the work, if you can perform at the standards that are required of you, then it doesn't matter. And I get, you could argue the time and rank and that sort of thing, but it's like, well, there are people out there that have been at a certain rank for how X amount of years, but they're not training or anything. But when they get to that, when they hit that point, does that mean that they get to get promoted, that they get that next stripe? If you have two people, one person, let's say it's 5 years to get to that next rank, and one person has spent that 5 years doing nothing, and the other person spent a year, but they were working every day, all day, whatever, 12 hours a day, every single day for 1 year. I feel like that person that's been doing it 1 year is just as deserving, if not more deserving, than someone that has been doing nothing for 5 years. And it just, still, at the end of the day, I just can't believe how grown adults are so upset over stripes on a belt.
Well, you mentioned
It's
Brazilian
insane to
Jiu-Jitsu.
me.
You said you'd study that as well. So it's very interesting to compare the way the two, not the two arts themselves, but the way the cultures and the camps are in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus Kempo. I think one of the issues with Kempo is that by the nature of it being a self-defense focused martial art, and a lot of things that we do in Kempo, I'm sure a lot of reality-based self-defense guys and the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys and anybody that's in those camps that are going to listen to this, they go, oh, here this comes again. But it's true to an extent that there are certain things that you can do in practice of self-defense that you really can't do on your training partners at full power and full velocity because they're injurious by nature. I mean, even jiu-jitsu in and of itself, we pull our submissions slowly to the point where we give someone time to concede and tap. Whereas in reality, if I'm in the street and I'm pulling an armbar on somebody, guess what? I'm not pulling that armbar to the point of do you quit? I'm blowing through that armbar like I'm trying to take your arm home. But since Kempo is non-competitive for the most part, it's easy for people to fall into these pitfalls of arguing things that don't matter. Oh, this guy got promoted faster than this guy. Who the cares? Those are the only things that come up when you can have an argument that has nothing to do with actual skill. And if you watch a lot of Kempo sparring, for instance, that's why I love what the 5.0 guys do, because they're like way outside that spectrum. But you watch a lot of standard Kempo sparring. We have all these fancy techniques that we do. We have these arm manipulations and eye gouges and chops and all things we do to the body and elbows. But the way our structuring is sparred is structured, it looks like bad kickboxing. So you do all the techniques, you get in your technique line, you line up and everybody comes and attacks you and you do delayed sword and everybody attacks you, you do 5 swords, and everybody attacks you and you go do, Mr. Plants was milking the mongoose, you do all these crazy techniques and then you put on your gloves and your headgear and you get out there and it's bad kickboxing again. Everything you see on the technique line, the way the sparring is typically structured, no one does any of it. It's just two people going back and forth, throwing back fists and side kicks. And that's not every school. So there's going to be some schools out there that will be offended here and there. We don't do that. I'd say everybody does it, but there's a lot of schools that's what it devolves to. Whereas in something like a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, at the end of every class, you spar with other people using the exact same stuff you just worked on. And therefore, when you get promoted, no one in the room really feels any type of way about it because they get to see your actual skill in applying it every day. And then a lot of schools are competition focused, so they promote you based on how well you do against other people. So everyone else gets to see how good you are at this. Case in point, last night, the UFC had a BJJ event on television. It was last night's Friday, Thursday, 2 nights ago. There's a young lady on there, Cassia Mora. She's the reigning UFC, I think, bantamweight women's champion in their Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu organization. She went from blue belt to black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in a year. Blue belt to black belt in BJJ in a year. In Kempo, people would be throwing a fit about that. But in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, people would throw a fit about that. But the way their art is structured, she has to go out there and compete against other people that are other black belts. So she's out there smoking them. No one can argue now. Whereas in Kempo, we don't get to that point. Like everyone that has ever had an issue, out of all the people all the years who have ever said they had an issue with my rank and my promotions and this and that and wanted to have those silly nonsense arguments that mean absolutely nothing to anybody that really has any wits about them. Only 2 guys have ever taken the challenge of come find me and we will settle this the old fashioned way. And those 2 guys don't talk about me anymore because we settled it as men and they know who's who in the zoo, as some people would say. They know who's who in the zoo now. But you get that in other martial arts more frequently than you get in Kempo. A lot of Kempo is we have like 89,000 10th degree black belts now, some of which are very respected and some of which no one remembers them being a 9th or 8th or 7th. Everyone remembers them stopping at 6 and then they're 10. It's just kind of like, okay, well, what happened and how did you get from there to there overnight? And there's no structure in place where anyone can look at it and compare them against someone else. So then it goes back to what you said. Well, it's whatever your teacher says, and that's it. We fall into that in Kempo so much, and it ends up being silly. And we also fall into the who does so-and-so move like? This guy moves like Mr. Parker. This guy moves like Mr. Mills. You, like you said, you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well. You don't ever see somebody in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu going, man, that guy moves like Helio Gracie. Man, that guy moves like Gordon Ryan. Man, that guy moves like Marcelo Garcia. It never comes up. No one ever says anything like that in the BJJ community. No one cares. No one says, oh, wow, man, his armbar looked just like Royce Gracie's armbar. Man, that's the guy. His arm looks like... They don't do that. It's, okay, yeah, this guy's good on the mats, or he's a good teacher on the mats, or he's both. That's all anybody cares about. Same thing with Taekwondo. No one says, oh, man, that guy moves just like Jun Ree. That guy moves just like Il Cho. No one does that. But in Kempo, we because we study motion so much in the art, we fall into this trap of this person moves like someone we respect, So that means that person's good because they move like someone we respect. And if they move like someone who we, and I'm not including myself or you in this, don't respect, all of a sudden that person's no good. I saw someone saying something the other day about one of the instructors from the Boston event. And that guy has been training with the same instructor for almost his whole life. And he moves very similar to the instructor he trained under. But this one person I'm using as an anecdote doesn't particularly care for that person's style of Kempo. So it became this guy's no good because he looks like that guy when he moves. That doesn't happen in any actual martial art that's a bit more battle tested than what Kempo has started to become, where we have guys with really high ranks on their belts teaching self-defense who've never been in any kind of live fire situation where they have to actually use it, either personally or professionally, or people that have never had to spar outside their little circle. And this is where this comes from. I'm going to talk about these other things that ultimately don't matter. It really doesn't, because no one cares what belt you are when it really counts. No one cares.
Exactly. Just because the belt colors show doesn't mean that you know. I mean, that's it's a very, very true statement. And yeah, you mentioned something that I hadn't really thought about until now, that makes a lot of sense. In that, yeah, with the testing, we go through our techniques and our freestyle and our katas and all that stuff like that, and then we kind of, quote unquote, you kind of dumb it down, and
you got it.
And then, like you said, it kind of turns into
bad kickboxing as soon as you start sparring.
And it's not that that's a bad thing for the test, but yeah, it is hard for this art for us to go full blast, as if you were to compare it to like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, you said it yourself, after every Jiu-Jitsu class, you're doing the real thing. I mean, yep. I know at our school, we do our warm-ups, we get the instruction of whatever move that we're working on.
Mm-hmm.
Then we do the practical, I guess I'm not using the right term, but we do the practical drill where we have some sort of quote unquote game to where we're working the move for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we do a couple of rounds of that, then we jump right into
it's time to
free roll.
It's time to scrap.
Just, yeah, you do the full thing. And I mean, yes, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu lends itself to being able to do that because we're not, elbowing each other and re-stomping the groin and that sort of thing. But I wish that Kempo could adopt a little bit more of the way that they do it in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or the way they do it in Capoeira, in that. So just taking my Jiu-Jitsu school for example, like we don't do tests.
Yeah, I was
and the coaches say that it's every day you're getting tested. Yep. Because every day the professors are watching you and seeing how you're working and how you're doing things, and how much you're training, and how much do you show? Do you just show up once a week, or are you there every day? I mean, we've got guys in our school that show up for morning class, show up for evening class, 3, 4, 5 times a week.
I ain't young enough for that anymore. I see the guys doing the morning class, and then they come for evening class, and then they're at the next time for morning or evening. I can't. My body can't keep up with that anymore.
No, I'm right there with you. I thought I could hang. When I started, I was getting about 3 times a week. In addition to also doing the other arts that I do. I don't know how I pulled it off. Now, not so much. I try and get at least a couple of times a week in the jiu-jitsu, and then it's the same with my Hapkido and Kempo. But yeah, it's a lot to do. But kind of getting back to the kind of testing part of it, and the promotion part of it in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When you get to those black belt ranks, in addition to having the time in rank, you don't get another stripe in if you're not putting in the work, if you're
Yeah.
not teaching, if you're not constantly on the mats. Yeah, you may have been whatever 2-stripe black belt for 10 years, but if you have not
If
been
you're not out there giving them back,
consistently putting in the work,
yeah, no one's
you
going
don't
to give
get
you
it.
the next one. But the funny thing about theirs is, so in our art, depending on which, it always varies by lineage and chart structure. There are some schools that do the 32 technique per belt system. There's some that do 24. There's some that do 16. Then you got some schools that they have their own techniques at this point. Most prominently, it would be like, Paul Mills's group, may he rest, and Jess Peetman's group. And there are other groups too. I'm just picking those two off the top of my head. But once you get to black belt, it's not the end of the tests. The second degree, there's more material. The third degree, there's more material. If you're in one of the 16 technique systems, fourth and fifth black, it's like they've taken this material that used to go to third black, and then they just stretch it all the way to fifth and sixth to give you more things to learn. Whereas like in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, once you get that black belt, you're kind of left to your own devices to focus on the things you want to focus on, and your learning continues under your own direction. The only requirement at that point is keep giving back and let the time pass. And as long as you're doing that, you're going to get promoted. So you're going to get promoted 3 years, 3 years, 3 years, then 5 years, 5 years, then 7, 7, then 9, 9. Like you're going to get promoted at those cadences, and everyone knows it. There's none of this. You got to come in and learn the ending to new techniques. And I fell into that pitfall when I was younger, and now I'm a little older, like I was explaining at this Boston event that we just came from. I've had my Kempo black belt for 26 years now. It's, when I was going through the ranks, I wanted to learn those extensions. Everyone wants to learn those extensions, because you tell people that black belt is where the real learning begins, and then you have more material that you learn at black belt. You inadvertently give people the implication that the real learning is the real material at black belt. So you have people that think that these extensions that's the system. It's the good stuff is in the extensions. And then after I learned all of them, I'm like, this is just the same exact material from the previous belt levels, reconfigured in different orders, some of which was just to force you to do something on the left side that you had previously only done on the right side, or to force you to do something in front of the body that you had previously only done behind the body. And once you understand that that's what they really do, the excitement and the mystique for the extensions, at least for me, that just dies. It's just, I can do this stuff forwards and backwards, in front and behind, on the left and the right, in my own time. I don't need a structured plan to do that. But you still have people that are like, the extensions are where the information really is. And that's kind of a pitfall that several other arts don't fall into. And I know it's starting to sound like I'm really dumping on Kempo. And I guess in a sense, I am to a degree. I don't agree with some of our misconceptions of our own art that we allow to proliferate through the art. Like, the bulk of the material is in the later part of the system. No, like I just, one of the instructors from the recent event, he mentioned how a lot of this material and stuff that you think is new, he gave us a breakdown, and it was really masterful. He gave us a breakdown of how much you can get out of short one. Just short form one that people learn, and you learn to step back and create distance and get a solid base, and front hand blocks and backhand does an elbow, and you learn directional harmony and rotation and everything else, and then move on to the new thing. And he's like, no, you can actually use this form to work on so many other things. And all of our material is like that, but a lot of places don't work it to that degree. And I see that when I go visit other schools. I keep a low profile, so there are jokes that I put videos up again, and they're like, "Oh, you're back." I'm like, "I never left. I just stopped putting stuff out in the open. I just went back to being James Hawkins. Who's that guy? No one knows him. I'm just doing my own thing with my own little group of guys. But like, I think Kempo can borrow from the way Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is structured, in the sense that even when they say jujitsu is full speed sparring, it's really not, because when you get down to that very last bit, when you finally got that hold in place, you don't go full speed. You stop, you slow down, and you give your partner time to tap. But sometimes in that moment where you're slowing down, your partner has time that they ordinarily wouldn't have to still get out of it because you didn't just rip it. So there's that, unless you go to a competition, even in competitions, except for the psychopaths. And we all have seen these where you have guys in competitions that act like every competition at this grappling industries tournament for this $2 silver medal on a necklace is the final to the UFC where you're going to get a contract. You know, they all go super hard and they'll rip submissions on people they don't know. But outside of that, it's still not full speed. I think Kempo's issue with the sparring is that it devolves into bad kickboxing because people are trying to apply full speed sparring in a somewhat controlled environment and also do that and not hurt their partner so that their partner can come back to class tomorrow. I think people need to do more quarter speed or half speed sparring where they have time to actually work on the actual technical aspects and work on the perception. So one of the things we talk about is the different speeds in Kempo. There's your physical speed. There's your speed of perception. How fast can you recognize what the threat is? And then how fast can you pick the proper response to that threat? And that's the order is you got to recognize the threat first, then pick the response, and then actually do the response. That's the 3 speeds. But once we do full speed sparring, most people never get out of the back fist, side kick, reverse punch, and that's it. You don't allow people to kick to the legs and do low line kicking. I know some schools don't do it for insurance purposes. But once you throw that out, well, a lot of the stuff we do in Kempo is low line kicking. But when sparring, we don't allow it. We do lots of arm traps and hand traps and joint manipulations on the arms and shoulders to throw people to the ground. But again, once you start sparring, a lot of schools don't allow it. So you practice these pieces, and then when you get to your live practice, you can't use any of it. So people don't develop the actual skill to utilize and actualize the techniques that they've learned in the art to be able to apply the art. And then that circles into arguments of, I don't think your belt's worth anything because you got it from this guy and I got mine from this guy instead. And my guy has the real knowledge and your guy doesn't.
Yeah, it's
No one cares.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a mess. It always makes me think of so there's this the movie The Foot Fist Way, and if you're not familiar with it, about a Taekwondo teacher and kind of his struggles through going through the school and whatnot, and he's got not a great relationship with his wife and all these different things. But at one point in the movie, he is getting to an argument with his wife, and he's talking about, oh, well, I'm a whatever 8th degree black belt. You know, I'm a professor, and she's like, not like at a college. You're a Taekwondo teacher. Like, that's
There's
all well and good, but outside of a Taekwondo school, it means nothing.
there's
And
there's a known character in our own little Kempo circle who does this. And there are some people who are going to watch this and they're going to laugh that I bring it up. I am not naming any names, but there's someone in Kempo who is a doctor, and man, will they tell you they're a doctor? But you are not a doctor in everything in the world. You're a doctor at one specific thing, but any chance they got, they'll tell you, yeah, I can do this and understand this because I'm a doctor. You're not a doctor in anything even remotely adjacent to that thing that you're telling us you're a doctor about.
yeah, it's funny to me, but yeah, I'm with you in that. Yeah, there's a lot more. There's a lot more to it than just learning the things and waiting for getting the extensions and stuff. Like, no, you get the system when you get the base stuff, the extensions. That's just the sprinkling on the top. So we use this term a lot in capoeira, and I would assume it may be in other arts as well, but we talk about working on the rice and beans. That the rice and beans are what's going to feed you,
Mhm.
and then all the seasoning and all that stuff like that. That's nice to have, but you can't survive on seasoning. Uh, but if you want to survive, you got to get the rice and beans. You got to get your basics. You got to get the those base techniques. And in our school, and I'm sure other schools do it, but we'll just take delayed sword, and my teacher will be like, okay, how many things can you come up with off of delayed sword using the Kempo principles, addition and subtraction and all of these different things, altering. And we'll kind of start thinking, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I can come up with like 10 techniques or 15 techniques. And he's like, no, there's no limit to how many stuff you can come up with. Just take just the yellow belt material, and you can go for years off of just that.
Mhm.
There's a whole bunch of other belts worth of material. And so to just be trying to chase, oh, well, what's the next technique? What's the technique? Like, how well do you really understand this technique before worrying about, oh, let me get the next technique so that I can get my next belt? Like, how well do you really know the material that you have now?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
I was very fortunate enough that one of the things that Mr. Frederick did was he really introduced me to a lot of other people in Kempo who were outside of our particular line. So he was very much wanted people to be loyal to him and loyal to his school, to a fault, I would say. But not so much that he didn't want you to study and train with other people. He just wanted to make sure that you studied and trained with other people and came back home, if that makes any sense. He didn't want to lose students, but he didn't mind you going to see other people. He actually encouraged it. So he had many people come in to the school over the years to teach seminars, or he would tell us of seminars in the area that we could go to meet other people. So I've had seminars with Mr. Palanis many times, Mr. Trejo a couple of times, Doc Chappelle, I think twice, Jeff Speakman, Larry Tatum, building them out with all these people who've been doing Kempo long before I even thought of it, and getting to pick their brains and learn their tendencies and this and that. Not just their interpretation of the art, but everyone kind of focuses. The art is so deep that a lot of people focus on specific pieces of it. Like whenever I go to teach a seminar on Kempo, every seminar I've ever taught in Kempo, I focus more on the contact and control manipulation aspect of the art, because everyone else, like, again, I keep going to Boston because it's the thing that I just did most recently, but we had 8 seminars over the weekend, and for the most part, they were fantastic seminars, focusing on what we do most commonly in Kempo, which is lining people up and playing billiards with their body. We hit them everywhere we can, and we put them where we want them so we can hit them some more. And my topic is always to give people a bit of a different side of the art. I focused on the manipulations we do to the body without hitting them, because there's a lot of our techniques that do a lot of actual vertical grappling, we'll say, or manipulation, and it's not really like people kind of blow by it to get to the hitting. I poke fun at these seminars and I ask people who has this technique on their favorite technique list. And I always pick techniques that I know no one has on their favorite technique list. The last one I just did, I picked gift and return. I was like, who has this on their favorite technique list? And like no one in the room. It's like I'm in a room of like 50 people and 49 of them are black belts. And no one was like, yeah, gift and return is my favorite move. Like no one in the room picks that move. Why? Because we don't really hit anybody much in that move. It feels like it's out. It's one of those techniques that feels like it's outside the system. It's the same thing when I ask somebody, what's your favorite technique on yellow belt? No one is going to say grasp of death or the pincher, depending on which school you go to, what it's called. No one's going to pick that one. No one says, yeah, that's my favorite move. Like no one ever picks that one. It's always something like attacking mace or mace of aggression or alternate maces is one of the ones where we just hit somebody. But going to these different seminars, I also was able to take a lot of private lessons with some of these instructors that weren't my private lessons. I would show up to the school to prepare for the day, knowing that we had this instructor coming in, so I would show up a little early to kind of help clean up and get things together. And Mr. Frederick would be having his private lesson with whoever the seminar instructor was. And if he saw me come in, he was always gracious enough to tell me, go hurry up, get dressed, get out here and take this private with me, get some information. And I remember one time we had Mr. Polanis come in, and Mr. Polanis says, he says that he called me, he's like, Jimmy, Jimmy, what do you want to work on today? And Mr. Jim said, I want to work on extensions, sir. And he said, okay, well, what extensions you want to work on? And he says, I want to work on the purple belt extensions. He says, I want to go through all of purple belt and go through all the extensions. And Mr. Polanis says, he says to him, I think at the time Mr. Jim was a 6th degree black belt, and I think Mr. Polanis was probably an 8th at the time, 8th or a 9th. And he says, and very matter of factly, he says, let's see if we can get through the base moves first. And I went, what? This guy's a 6th degree black belt. Of course we want to get through the base moves. We did the first 6 techniques on purple belt. We did not sniff an extension because Mr. Polanis was not satisfied with what he was seeing just in the base moves. Like some of them minor tweaks here and there that he wanted to get in there, and some of them he was pretty like, that is absolutely not the way you should be doing this technique. Someone has changed something over the years. That is not the way it should be taught. But seeing that and experiencing it firsthand went, okay, there's a lot more to this system than what meets the eye. I really gotta, there's another level I need to dig into. And the only way to do that is to talk to this person, talk to that person, talk to this person, talk to that person. Because everyone seems to have different pieces of the puzzle or different versions that Mr. Parker taught them. And everyone swears up and down that the version that Mr. Parker taught them is well, I shouldn't say everyone swears it's the version. There are a few guys out there that say this is the version that Mr. Parker taught me. It's not the version. It's the one he taught me. There's a handful of people out there who are adamant that Mr. Parker taught them a very unique version of the American Kempo system that he didn't teach to anybody else but them. And it's kind of like, when did he do this when no one else was around to see this ever occur? When did you have that much of his time to learn an entirely separate version of the entire system from this man that no one else was there for? It stretches the limits of believability at that point, especially when you can watch video of so many people that are saying this, and then you can watch videos of them performing up to the point that Mr. Parker passed away. And it's like, well, that's weird, because every video I see of you up to that point, you look just like everybody else that trained with him. So if you were doing some secret thing that no one else was doing, why does it not show up in any of your recordings until after he passed, when what you did started to noticeably shift? But yeah, being able to just study with multiple people and get the different pieces of the very deep art that we have, I think that's very, very key thing. The rice and beans, man. Just I'm going to borrow that expression. Actually, I like that. You gotta,
yeah, no, it's one of my favorites. I love it. So yeah, so we're flying through time. We're actually going a little bit over. So I hope I can keep you for just a little bit longer.
I am on your time. I can talk about this stuff all day.
Yeah, I could too. And as much as I would love a 12-hour show, I don't think the listeners.
No.
I don't know. Some of the listeners will be into that, but
we'll definitely truckers.
We'll definitely have to get you on for part 2, 4, 5, 12, and all that. But so before we hit our lightning round here, I did have to mention I do like gift in return. I was thinking you were going to go for squeezing the peach as the one that everyone hates, but
that's one I pick on every now and again too. No one typically likes the ones that are more grappling focused, I'll say. The less the technique is about bombastically going in and hitting somebody, the less people in general tend to gravitate towards it and go, yeah, that's a technique I really like. Like everyone loves 5 swords. So I don't even ask about it. Everyone loves thundering hammers. Mm-hmm. So I can't go into a room and go, who here likes 5 swords? It's like, yeah. Who here likes thundering hammers? If I go, all right, who here likes squeezing the peach? No one in the room.
Yeah. No one likes squeezing peach, but yeah, the some of those I like to call the Kempo All Stars because I've seen them. So I started in a Tracy's
Mhm.
version, and then moved to the Ed Parker version, and Five Swords was in both. Thundering Hammers was in both. Snapping Twigs was in both. So any of those that show up in each of the versions, those are my all stars, and yeah, usually those are the ones that everyone loves. So
That's what I like about martial arts in general is I tend to tell people if you can find a solution that multiple arts have come up with, or particularly multiple arts that come in different parts of the world have come up with, there's a key concept or a key principle or a key technique there. If you see the same thing keep showing up in different places, different parts of the world, like when European and Western wrestling have come up with a solution, and then you see in Brazil they came up with the same thing independent of each other. You see in Japan they came up with the same thing. It's like, okay, these different parts of the world all came up with the same thing. There's some meat there. So when you see the same technique in this Kempo, but you see it in Kung Fu, but you see it in Shotokan, and you see it in Taekwondo, it's like there's something there because everyone keeps going back to it.
yeah, that that actually just reminded me. One of my previous guests, he is not a Kempo practitioner, and we were talking, and somehow Five Swords came up, and he was like, "Oh, I know Five Swords." He's like, "I teach Five Swords." It's like, but you're not a Kempo. I mean, not like we own the rights or
Uh-huh.
anything to it, but it was just like, but you're not a Kempo person. And he's like, oh, but it's a great technique. Like, why am I not going to teach it? So he's like, yeah, I teach Five Swords to my students, and they're all, it's like Taekwondo and stuff. So yeah, good stuff. Good news travels fast. So I like that. All right, so we are going to move into our lightning round here. I got a
Okay.
few little questions here as we wrap up. So the first question being, do you have a favorite technique?
I have a favorite
And why
technique.
is it squeezing the peach?
Watch us squeezing the beats. My actual favorite technique in the entire system is, believe it or not, delayed sword. Because it gets so much material out of just that technique, teaching delayed sword, but also teaching people uh, the inherent problems in delayed sword if you actually try and apply it in an actual situation. Key problem being no one gives you a dead grab in reality. No one grabs you and doesn't disturb your base, which causes some own issues. And if they really grab you violently, the idea of picking your foot up off the floor to kick someone that already has full contact with you and you don't know how to grapple is a very, very bad idea. From the jiu-jitsu perspective, as you know, if I have a hold of your lapel already and you take one foot off the floor for me, you have done 90% of the work I need to put you on your butt very violently, very quickly. So the fact that our technique does that right off the bat, yeah. So you get a lot of material on that. So delayed sword, as corny as that's going to sound, the very first technique in the system is my very favorite technique to use for anything.
No, I love it. It's perfect. And actually, at my last class that we were in, we were working delayed sword, and not just from the lapel grab, but from a
Mm-hmm.
push and blocking on the outside,
Mm-hmm.
a punch blocking on the outside, a punch blocking on the inside. We're combining it with joint locks, and I mean, there's so many
That's the
things that
word
you can
tempo. You
do with
take you
that
take the
technique. Yeah,
ideal phase and then you keep going. I see a
exactly,
lot of places
exactly.
that don't.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Right
Ideal
there with
phase
you.
and that's it.
Yeah. Very nice, very nice. All right. Next question: do you have a favorite form and or set?
Favorite form. One favorite form. It's very tough to say one favorite form because I like working with my forms. I'm not one of those guys that tries to throw the forms. I like working them. My favorite form would either be Form 4 or Form 6. Those are the ones like I'll just be standing around talking to people, other martial artists, and I'll just sit here and, I'll just sit here and start doing things from 4 or 6 with my hands in there. Like I'm always thinking about those forms and just doing different things from them. So 4 and 6.
Ah, very nice, very nice. Yeah, those get a lot of love around here. So, I'm not yet in the black belt level, so I don't have those yet. However, I was in a seminar a while back, and Sabora Chan was teaching seven, and I mean, it was great to get exposed to it, but kind of looking at him like, this is way above my pay grade. Like, is somebody gonna is somebody gonna come out and come and get me? And
He's a good guy. I've had a good time every
oh
time I've
yeah.
been on the mat with him, and every time I've been in the same space with him. Sabor's a good guy.
Oh yeah, and it's a pleasure to work with, and still working on getting him on the show. So
Oh, really? You haven't gotten him here yet?
yeah, we just haven't been able to get it aligned. He agreed a long time ago, and we just haven't made their schedules work. But I'm working on him, working on him. So
Okay.
we'll get him on here. All right. Next question. Do you have a favorite weapon?
A favorite weapon, as in an unnatural weapon or a natural weapon?
Just anything you consider a weapon is fair game. I've had a myriad of different answers, so whatever you
Uh,
consider a weapon,
my
that
favorite
qualifies.
weapon would have to be a technique, and not a Kempo technique, but a piece of a technique. So if you watch any videos of me teaching anything, I continually go back to arm wrenches and arm drags. So that's my favorite weapon, is an arm wrench or an arm drag, because I can use it to do so many different things. I can set people up for getting hit a lot of times. I can use it for throwing people on their heads or for kicking their legs out from under them and dropping them on their butts. I can throw people violently or non-violently with an arm drag or an arm wrench as a setup. So those two things together, that's my favorite quote unquote weapon.
Very nice, very nice. I like it. All right. Next question: if there's anyone that you could train with, living or dead, fictional or non-fictional, besides Ed Parker, who would that be?
Fictional or non-fictional?
Yeah,
Okay, well, I'll give
anyone ever, and
I'll
it could be people you've already trained with. It could be
I'll give an
just
answer to I'll
anybody.
give an answer to fictional and non-fictional. I'll give two answers. So fictionally, Kichiro from Fist of the North Star. That would be who I want to train with. Hope the Shinken is unbeatable.
Nice.
Non-fictional, I have never managed to get on the mat with. There's a lot of BJJ instructors I never got on the mat with. The ones I would like to have gotten on the mat with at this point would be either a Hickson Gracie or Roy Harris. Those two are two people I would love to get on the mat with one day and just be able to kind of pick their brains. One, because of well, both of them extremely high levels of skill, but also the material I have of theirs and how they explain things and how they teach works for how I learn. And I feel like I would be able to really, really grow from just having a few minutes with them would really give me information I could use.
No, very nice, very nice. I like it. All right. Our last question here, and is something that motivates you, that always motivates you to train, and or something that you'd like to put out to motivate others to train. Now, I'm going to kind of change this up a little bit because something came up the other day that I hadn't really thought about. But so I usually use the example of the movie Rocky Four when he has the training montage. He's running in the snow, he's chopping the wood, he's throwing the boulders, all that good stuff. Anytime I watch that scene, I'm ready to hit the mats and get to training. But the wrinkle that came up the other day was that um, Rocky Three, the training montage in Rocky Three, he's actually training to fight versus Rocky Four. I mean, yeah, I guess, you're running, you're building up your cardio, you're building up your strength,
Mhm.
throwing all these, things and whatnot, but he's not really
Yeah.
he's not actually training to fight. He's not really throwing any punches or anything. But Rocky Three, he's hitting the bag, he's sparring,
Yeah.
and so that kind of messed my head up a little bit, but as for right now, Rocky Four is still the one that montage gets me going. So, what is something like that always motivates you to train, or something that you would like to put out for others to motivate them to train?
So the things that well, something that would get me in the right headspace to train is if I hear a song from the old Casino Royale James Bond movie from 2006. The opening song is "You Know My Name." That song really gets me amped up. I still listen to it daily. It always gets me motivated to go and do things. Arm yourself because no one else here will save you is a line from that song. And that's what I always think about my training is, I've got to train myself because when it really gets down to it, no one's going to defend me better than I am. As far as something that really motivates me to want to train outside of listening to a specific song, I am always motivated by the giving the arts back to someone else. And my mindset is I can't effectively give it back to anyone else if I'm not doing everything I can to be good at doing them and exceptional at teaching them. So I'm always focused on how well do I know these things to be able to convey them to someone else. Because being able to do them well enough to defend myself, that's one thing. Being able to convey the information to someone else and conveying it in a multitude of different ways you need to be able to get through to different types of people based on their personalities, their biases, and how they learn. That's kind of a thing that motivates me to look at things in a much deeper level, because knowing how to do something is like level one, but conveying it to other people so that they too can do it, it's so many levels above just you doing it on your own.
Exactly. I like it. All right. So we are now at our very final piece of business for today, and that is the shameless self-promotion. So you can plug anything that you want, or if there's anything that we haven't covered that you wanted to say, you now have the floor, and then we will close out from there.
All right. I don't really have anything much to self-promote. Anybody that wants to get a hold of me, I'm pretty easy to find on the social media. Kempo Jiu-Jitsu 3 is kind of my handle everywhere. So you can find me on any socials like that. I do like to travel around and share the arts, particularly the art of Kempo. I go where I'm asked to go. So like I mentioned the Boston event, I went there because someone reached out and said, "Hey, do you want to teach at this event?" Absolutely. I would love to go there. I don't charge people to go and teach because it's something that I get pleasure out of. I'm not trying to make a living off of martial arts. I'm a high level manager for Johns Hopkins. I make enough money doing that. Martial arts is that's my safe space. So if someone wants me to come out and teach a class at their school, give me a buzz. As long as you can make it so I'm not spending money. I'm not losing money to go do it. I will gladly lose the time, but I will not lose the money to do it. And that's it.
All right. Excellent. Well, I thank you so much for taking the time to share your story, and hopefully we can get you back on to get to some of the things that I usually ask. But we got on our rat holes and stuff, and I got my rant gi ironed and pressed and ready to go. So that's all fine. But I just thank you for sharing your story, and we'll definitely have to do this again. I'm excited to get this together, and can't wait to share it out with the folks. And just once again, I can't thank you enough for being on. It was a real pleasure to get to talk to you, and we'll have to do this again real soon.
All right, looking forward to part 2. Thanks again. It was good catching up. I know we had some challenges getting our schedules lined up too, but we made it happen.
Right on. Well, thank you so much.
All right.